Well, thank you so much, and it's great to be back in Boca Raton after campaigning throughout the day down in Broward County, and great to see so many friends. I just have to comment on something that Janine just said, which is that the reason why constituent service was always the top 3 priorities in my office is because during my formative years, I had the opportunity to work for one of the true statesmen that represented our county and our surrounding communities, and that was former Congressman Tom Lewis. And Congressman Lewis taught me during those years what the responsibility of a public servant is, and it was something that always carried with me, and it was something that I instilled in my office. And it's models like his, as well as former Congressman Clay Shaw, who I just came from an event with in Fort Lauderdale, and he sends his greetings, and he and Emily have been so supportive of our campaign, and many of you know my wife Jillian, who's here with me tonight, that Clay and Emily, when they had the years that they represented many of these coastal communities, it's really with that model that I hope to have the ability to continue the Republican leadership started by Clay Shaw. There was a brief moment of interruption, and then more recently filled by Allen West. And so this is a district that deserves not only a strong voice in Washington, but it also is a district that deserves a strong representative and somebody who puts the people that they represent first and not their own personal agenda. And that's something I think that is missing from both sides of the political aisle, for that matter. Because one of the biggest dysfunctions in Washington today is the fact that members of Congress don't live by the same set of rules as everybody else. And I have, on numerous occasions, challenged Ms. Frankel to take the same pledge that I've taken and make the same commitments that I've made, which is to personally term limit myself, which is to say that I will never vote for or accept a pay increase as a member of Congress, and that I will refuse a congressional pension. Because did you know that it only takes 5 years of service as a member of Congress to qualify for full retirement benefits? That's outrageous. You don't have access to that in your retirement program, and I don't think that taxpayers should be paying for those benefits for members of Congress that they don't have access to. And while we're on the subject of things that are outrageous, when you stop and think for a moment that Congress hasn't passed a budget now in over 3 years, you realize they're not doing their job. And what happens to you when you don't do your job? You don't get paid. Well, that's why I've been one of the leaders nationally of something called no budget, no pay. If Washington doesn't pass a budget, then members of Congress don't get paid. And I think that's a great way. It's a great way to lead by example. And more importantly, it's a great way to start to begin to change the culture in Washington so that we can actually begin to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish to put America back on the right track. And so with only 4 days to go before Election Day, I can tell you that we have just been so thankful for the support that we've received from throughout these communities. All of the polls have this race as a statistical dead heat tie, and we know that we have the momentum on our side. We've seen so many of you out there volunteering at the early voting locations, helping to make a difference, and we know we're going to have a phenomenal ground game, right, Mr. Chairman, in the last 72 hours, getting the vote out. And I think really the reason why we've had so much support, and Dina mentioned this, about being able to have support from both sides of the political aisle and everyone in between, is because our message is resonating. And our message has been very simple and very consistent from day one, and it's been this. The problems that we face as a country and the solutions to those challenges aren't about being Republican or aren't about being Democrat. It's about math. It's about the fact that our federal government is spending $1 trillion a year more than it's bringing in. That's unsustainable. The $16 trillion in debt that we've accumulated as a country, it is stifling our economic recovery. It's killing job creation, and it's also become America's greatest national security threat. You understand this from your personal lives and from business, that when you have creditors, you don't control your own destiny. That's what's now jeopardizing America's future, because when you're borrowing 40 cents of every dollar that you spend as a country, and much of that is from countries that don't share our values and our interests, then you can't, as a nation, act in your own best national security interests. And so that's why every single day we've been reaching out and getting this message out, and it's been talking about the solutions to get America's fiscal house in order and get America's economy moving again. Responsibly balancing our budget and getting out of control spending in line. The pro-growth policies to get small businesses hiring and investing. The things that we need to do to get people back to work. That's why we've had so much support from not just Republicans, and we thank you so much for all that you guys have done, but from independents and Democrats who are reaching across party lines. Proud to tell you that we just recently received the Sun Sentinel endorsement as well. And even for that matter, to tell you that the Palm Beach Post couldn't even bring themselves to endorse Lois Frankel, even though they agree with her, because they know Lois Frankel. And speaking of people who know Lois Frankel, I think many of you have probably heard me talk about the fact that I'm the son of two former public school teachers, and both my parents were liberal Jewish Democrats when I was born in Brooklyn. Well, for the first time probably ever in her life, my mom is at a Republican club meeting, and there's my mom. Many of you know my story. Many of you know my story. What some of you may not know is my mom was Lois Frankel's first campaign manager for the State House back in 1986. And so you can only imagine the conversations at the Hasner dinner table on Friday night when I'm trying to get the keys to the car and telling my mom that I'm not going to go out and help her and help Lois Frankel put up yard signs on Saturday morning. But if there's anything that I got from my mom, because it was not certainly my political views, but if there was anything I got from my mom, it was my passion. And it was my hard work and my determination and the character that she instilled in me to just keep going and to be persistent and to persevere. And I think that really is what motivates me every single day, and it what makes me believe in the promise of America. And every day, Jillian and I have the tremendous privilege of meeting so many new people and hearing their stories and learning about the sacrifices that their parents made for them and the sacrifices that they now make for their children. So that promise of America continues. And I meet so many wonderful people too who actually came to this country from places in Eastern Europe and Venezuela and Cuba, places where they fled communism and socialism and dictatorships and oppression to pursue what's only possible in the United States. The freedom of opportunity, the freedom of religion, to be able to pass on that dream to their children and their grandchildren so that one day they are able to pursue their dreams. That's what we know this election's about, because what we decide next Tuesday is not only going to shape America for the next 2 or 4 years, it's going to shape America for the next 20 or 40. That's what's on the line. I think each and every one of you knows what the issues are. You know what the arguments are. You know what's at stake. And I think each and every one of you in this room tonight, you know what needs to be done. So over the course of the next 4.5 days into Election Day, I'm going to ask you guys to work. Because standing around and talking about how we don't have somebody at an early voting location or at a polling place, that person could be you. And it could be one of your friends. All the candidates who spoke here tonight need that extra help. And the only way we're going to be able to do it is if you stand with us between now and Election Day. Be that last line of visibility as somebody walks in to the voting booth and you can hand them a card about the candidate of your choice or the Republican slate of candidates. Be that person who's out waving a sign on Election Day. Be that person over the next 5 days that's making phone calls to undecided voters and to voters who haven't yet returned their absentee ballot or who still haven't gotten out to vote yet. Because this is it. This is all going to come down to our ability to get our vote out on Tuesday. And it's all going to be about whether or not our children and grandchildren inherit that promise of America that we inherited from our parents and our grandparents. And so we have 5 days now to make sure that we are able to get this job done. The responsibility is ours. We can't look anywhere else to ask anybody else to do this. This is going to make a determination about the future of our country and what type of country we live in and what type of country our children live in. That's why this is so important. Each and every one of you understands this or you wouldn't be here tonight. But you have the ability to make an impact. We need you to make those phone calls. We need you to hold those signs. We need you to send those emails over the course of the next few days, and we need you to be out on Election Day working hard, because none of us, not one of us in this room, wants to wake up on November 7th thinking that there was just a little more that we could do to make a difference. I know in my race, it's going to come down to the wire. Every little bit that you do is going to have a big impact in the outcome of our race. It's going to have a big impact on the outcome of every single race. It's going to have an impact on which way Florida goes in the presidential, and we know from Palm Beach County, that's going to have an impact on which way the White House goes in January. So I'm here for you tonight to ask for you to ask yourself that question. Is, can you find it in yourself to give that time, to volunteer, to sacrifice? Because when you think back throughout the history of our country, every time this nation has been challenged, there's been a generation that has answered the call. People who have done tough things to make sure that America perseveres. This is our chance. This is our time. And we are going to turn America around together and get our country back on the move. Thank you guys so much again.